This is Do It For a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
Practice setting goals and then identifying the steps and just doing the steps. That's all it is just discipline of doing those steps. And now the book and all these things are coming together. It's like you guys are starting to see the result of things that I started a year ago.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It For a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It For a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois, and today we got Tony Whatley. He is the creator of LS1 Tech, the forum that everybody is probably familiar with, especially if you're in the LS1 platform at all. And he's also got two other companies, 365 Driven and Deviate Motoring. And recently, he just came out with a new book called Side Hustle Millionaire to kind of document his story of these side businesses, because he also has a full-time job. So he's a very busy guy, and I just wanted to say thanks for joining us, Tony. And we actually had recorded this once, but I had a screw up and the whole thing was not usable. So this is our second attempt at this. So Tony, how are you doing?
Good. I think we'll just try to share more value the second time around.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We'll call that a warm-up lap. And here we go. We're going for the time trial now.
Right. Okay, so Tony, why don't we go ahead and get started first by kind of give us a an idea of your background. How'd you get involved in cars? What kind of brought you into getting started with LS1 Tech?
I've always been a car person. I think it goes all the way back to being a child, and probably just like every one of your listeners, we all started playing with Hot Wheels and had collections of those. And it's just, I think it's something strange about people who are gearheads. I think it's almost like a genetic thing that we're born with, that we just like to understand how things work, and things that are machinery tend to fascinate us. Mm-hmm. So I've always been that. And I've always wondered how things work, and I was taking things apart as a kid and putting things back together to understand how everything works. So I guess cars are kind of like the natural progression of that if you're going to be exposed to something on a daily basis. And I guess starting with LS1 Tech, originally we were all sitting around on LS1.com originally. It started in 98. And we were having a good time. We had a good group of racers and drag racers all around the country. So we had, big groups in California and Chicago area and Houston and Northeast and New York, New Jersey area and Florida guys and Louisiana guys. So we had these big groups, and it was a very good community that we met up online, because these cars in 98, when they had just come out, the Camaros and Firebirds, there wasn't any modifications for them. There wasn't any parts for them at that time. So we had to get creative to make these cars faster. And we were hanging out on this forum to share these ideas and learning things that we could do to trick things to get better times at the drag strip. And then what happened is the guy that was running the site, he just wasn't managing it properly. And it really drove us off. He was not paying the bills to the server host. And a couple times the entire site got deleted, and we were the ones creating all these how-tos. I mean, we were spending hours writing how-tos and keeping quarter-mile records lists and doing all these things. So when you have a website that is user-generated content, you have to really be a good steward and respect the time and the effort that goes into that content. And if you don't do that, they're going to get burned a couple times and they're going to want to leave. So it happened again, and we asked him about it and said, hey, man, what's going on? Can you guys, keep this thing going? We're trying to give you guys a lot of stuff, and everybody's coming to read these things. We're making videos and how-tos and all kinds of stuff. And he kind of threw an attitude at us, and he's like, if you guys think you can do a better job, go start your own site.
And so you actually did exactly that, right?
Yes, we started LS1 Tech in November of 2001.
Okay, so about a year and a half probably after that challenge, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and it was kind of there was some bad blood. There was a division that it seems like we got all the racers and technical guys onto ours, and that's the purpose we called it LS1 Tech, because we wanted to put the emphasis on the technical side of that engine. And the other side became mostly the social aspect, and the people that really weren't in the racing or technical stuff that kind of just hung out and did the social things, kind of like a car club would.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we made the right choice. That's the one that had the longevity. We were more interested in understanding what was in these engines, what we could do to improve them, and the manufacturers and all the parts, of course, they're going to take that side as well.
Okay. And this whole time you're working a day job. So you are not just, a code monkey making a forum, right? What were you doing as a day job?
I've been in oil and gas since I was 18. I started in the field as a welder, pipe fitter helper, structural welder. Then I started going to school and paid for college. I got my engineering degree. And then I started going down the engineering route in the same industry. Project management eventually into the large corporations, large things. I was working for the majors. And so the entire time, the car passion, the car interest was always my passion. And since I wasn't working in that industry, I created my own way into that industry by starting companies like LS1 Tech and Deviate Motoring, which is a wheel retail company that I've owned for the last 9 years. So it's a way to still be in the industry. It's a way to earn money for your hobbies. I mean, cars and racing, and you guys have seen, I build a lot of cars and I go racing and I do these trips. And my car hobby has always been funded by my businesses.
Okay. And how did you, when you accepted that challenge to make LS1 Tech, I guess you could call it a challenge, how did you go about, doing that? I mean, what kind of skills did you have to learn to kind of create the forum?
Well, I had already started making websites back, I guess, let me think about probably 97, 98 time frame. I taught myself HTML because I'm very graphically, I guess, an artist. I used to do a lot of drawing and painting and things like that. And then when I put that off for years because of college, I just had no time to do that stuff. So I was started to look for ways to be more creative and create some kind of thing. And that became websites. Like when you go to websites, to me, I look at the art and the aesthetics of it. So I taught myself how to use Photoshop, how to use Editor, how to create graphic design, three-dimensional graphics, these things like that. And plus all the engineering background, I was doing a lot of 3D CAD drafting at that time. So I was always involved in doing these kind of graphic things. And I said, well, now I need to know how to put these things together. So I bought a book and I taught myself how to do HTML programming, which is the website coding that browsers read. Mm-hmm. And I made little rudimentary web pages, and I started getting pretty good at creating the graphics and laying them out and making them function and making websites back in the late 90s were very, very simple compared to nowadays. But I realized that there was a lot of companies out there, especially local businesses or automotive related companies that did not have web presence at that time. And they needed somebody to create a website. So a lot of times I started just trading them car parts or things like that for web pages. So I would say, look, this web page is probably going to be like $3,000 based on what you wanted. So you can either pay me that or I need this for my car. So I was trading exhausts and heads and cams and even traded like a stroker engine and all kinds of things. I was just building these things to fund my hobby. So that was initially the side hustle. And so when John came to me, I was like, hey, why don't we create a website? Of course, I was the website guy. I was like, well, I can create logos. I can make the site look good. I can set it up and get it going. And then we had fun just kind of, evolving it over time. So the logo actually changed. Most people don't realize it. Well, that logo changed, I want to say 4 or 5 times in the first year, because we were just really trying to get the brand identity, trying to square it away, because the site was very small. We probably had like 1,000 users at that time, so not a whole thing. And we kept having contests and doing logo design and these kind of things. And eventually we ended up with a big oval that everybody recognizes, and that was my design. And the reason I came up with that design is I wanted something that looked good as a decal on a car.
Oh, okay. That's smart thinking.
Yeah. So I was like, everybody's gonna be running around with this, and there's still thousands of cars running around. I still see cars driving around in Houston with the logo on it sometimes.
Yeah, and I have a logo, but I've never once thought about, when you're designing it, I don't ever think about what it will look like as a sticker.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
One of them is pretty bad. It's really long, so the lettering is it's like an 18-inch long sticker, and it's 2 inches tall, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's got to be stylish. It's got to kind of look like an emblem from a car, and then that's why people put it on their car.
Awesome. So, do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Is that something you really set out to do?
Absolutely. Going all the way back as a kid, I've always just tried to figure out things to make more money. I didn't grow up with any money, and my parents worked really hard. and they taught me if I wanted something, I needed to go out there and work and get it. So I figured out how to teach myself to do a lot of different things to earn money. So if I could teach myself new skills or learn new knowledge that I could get paid for, I was always doing that. I've always read a lot of books, practiced. I mean, this was all before we had YouTube or before we even had like a good Google that you could go find things. And we sure didn't have cell phones that you could just type in something and learn in the next 10 minutes. So it was a lot harder to go find those kind of things. You had to buy books a lot of times. But I've always been that way. I've always thought about that. Even as a kid, I go to the corner store and buy blow pops, like the whole box of them at the corner store. And I'd take them home and I'd put them in little Ziploc bags, like sandwich bags, and I'd sell them like one or two at a time, and basically doubled my money every time I sold out a box. And it was kind of like this candy dealer, in the grade school, and doing that with Jolly Ranchers and, just whatever the trendy candy of the month was, right? It changed all the time. But I know that a lot of kids, their parents wouldn't buy them candy, and I could just walk down to the store at the end of my block and go buy it myself. So it was a good way to do just flipping money, and my parents were okay with it. They're like, "That's cool, he's learning how to make money. He's learning," and they let me do that kind of stuff.
Very cool. And have you ever doubted yourself, kind of through this process of, starting a web page? And I mean, you're not relying on the income from the web page because you had a day job, but have you ever kind of doubted yourself and wondered if this is going to work, and how do you overcome that feeling?
I think you'll find that everyone of success has self-doubt. I don't think that's something you ever escape. I think even billionaires have some level of self-doubt, and I think that's just internal. And the way you process that is just by executing on your plan. And then when you start to see these little victories and wins and things that are coming along, it sort of just validates your idea and your plan. And if you're not seeing these little minor victories and things that are your accomplishments, then maybe you need to adjust your plan a little bit, or maybe you need to adjust your effort a little bit. And that's the case that most people need, is they're just not putting as much effort. A lot of people talk about doing things, but they don't actually do it. Mm-hmm. And I think you just have to, over time, I mean, I'm 45 now, and I think that over time I just get more confident because I've already had a longer history of accomplishing the goals that I've had. But I can see going back in my 20s, you don't have those things. You don't have these goals set yet, or you don't have any accomplishments that you're super proud of. But even if you did one, or you start to self-doubt yourself, like, did I get lucky? Was that the only one I'm ever going to do? That kind of talk.
Right.
So I think that's normal. I think that's how most people tend to be wired, until it's what we would call the imposter syndrome. And it's funny because you'll read like these books from these brilliant people, and these very successful entrepreneurs, and they always bring that imposter syndrome up, that they kind of wonder if they're the real deal or if they're fake. Do other people think I'm fake? Am I real? Because you really don't know, even if you do have success. And I think you just got to stay the course. You got to look at your goals, keep making steps, even the smallest steps, because progress is what motivates you to take the next step.
Okay. What's the worst experience you've had in business?
I would say the worst experience that we've had is maybe not being fully aware of, I guess, anything like legal or lawyers or buyouts on the acquisition when we sold the website. There were some things that we could have done better. And, it's cost us a little bit of money to resolve things like that. I just think that these are things also that you learn with experience, and no one really has that kind of experience. And there's always going to be the surprises along the way of running a business. And you try your best to identify these risks, but always there's some that pop up that you don't even think about. So it's learning how to adapt to these changes and these things that weren't planned. And I would say that for me, it's kind of like the realization that sometimes big corporations can bully the smaller companies just because they can afford to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, I haven't had to experience that yet. But everybody always dreams of getting to that point, right? And then when you get there, it's a kind of a, it becomes a problem or not a problem. I don't really know.
Yeah, when you start talking more than six figures or even a six-figure deal, you realize that business is business, and even if they like you, they're not really going to move away from their business idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've kind of touched on how you got LS1 Tech started. What got you to do Deviate Motoring, and then further down the line the 365 driven?
So with Deviate Motoring, it kind of goes back. I was laughing because we did the side hustle within a side hustle because I was selling wheels, and I was building a lot of project cars when I was running LS1 Tech. I think I had about 30 cars in that course of a 5-year period that we were really running it. And I was always building something and collaborating with vendors and sponsors of the website to build these project cars to help them promote their products and get results at the track and on the dyno and all these things. And I was always, like going back to the aesthetics, I always felt like I could design cars really well, make them look good, and make people ask questions. And I'm always the one that's always going to share that information. I never really felt like I needed to keep those things secret. So people would come to me and go, hey, what wheels are those? What size is that? How does that fit? Where'd you get those? And I was giving all this advice, and I started to realize when you're running a site that big, you're getting hit all the time with emails from people asking similar questions. And I was referring that business out. And we really didn't even have any wheel advertisers at that time. So I was advertising them out or referring them out to the manufacturers, like Forge Line, HRE, Fixie, these big name brands. And then I said, after a while doing that, I was like, man, I'm kind of missing out on the opportunity here. I could actually be making money by selling these wheels after I give them the reference of the fit. So I said, let me figure out that. And so I started selling the wheels. I went out and figured out what the buy-ins were for some of these brands. Most of them, they wanted you to sell like $10,000 worth of product, like to get the buy-in to become a dealer. So it's like, that's easy. I have access to a whole lot of people that like wheels. So I would just have an introductory sale, and that would basically fund my buy-in, and I would buy the product, and then I was a dealer for that. So that became something that I was operating through the backside of LS1 Tech. And I was paying my taxes, doing everything through LS1 Tech. Like even the payments went to LS1 Tech at that point. And when we sold the site, obviously I couldn't maintain that, so I created Deviate Motoring to harbor that business. It's always been a side business. I think on average I'll sell between $300,000 to $400,000 a year in wheels, and it only takes about an hour a day.
Okay, so that's pretty good. And I mean, higher end wheels have got to have better margins than some of the cheap clones, which essentially you can't make any money selling them because the people who are making them are the only ones taking any profit from them. So
yeah, you gotta have a volume. It's a different business model getting into those what I call part number wheels. If it's a part number that sits on a shelf, I really don't like selling those because you got to have a lot of volume to move those to make any money, and I don't have the time to do that. So I have to be realistic with myself. So I tailored my business to the high end market where I know all the fitments and I know how to recommend what makes them look good on their car. And I help people build these project cars for magazines and SEMA and all these different manufacturers like come to me and ask me for, do you know anybody with a brand new Viper or something? We need a set of wheels on that. Can you go get one and we'll hook you up and you guys can market. So we have all these collaborations that are going on in the background that most people don't realize. And it's a great place to be because it keeps you still in the industry. And like I said, it's a side business that spawned from another side business.
Awesome. It's always interesting hearing like how, somebody can build a business from another business and, how the two kind of play together. And, you saw a hole that your primary business had, and you were able to fill it with your basically spare time. At whatever spare time is, right?
Yeah. I like the businesses that only take an hour and a half, maybe. I'll get up early in the morning. I'll answer email quotes. Usually, you'll start getting responses sometime during the day, and I'll get home and I'll respond back or not. And I've gotten pretty good at understanding how to close those deals and ask them what's going to take to make that deal. And because I don't really want to spend an hour just going back and forth answering emails, basically. And there's a lot of people out there that, as you know, in the auto sector that will try to get all this information from you and then they want to go price shop it and get it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I've become a lot more aware of the signs that tell me how people are. And I just don't share that information. I'll just I handle all the fitness. That's going to be a guaranteed thing. Like you don't need to worry about that stuff.
Right. Okay. So I wanted the final business you kind of put together here is 365 driven. And so why don't you explain a little bit what that is?
Okay. So about Just over a year ago, in May of 2017, I decided to be more public about helping the smaller business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. I've been doing this for about 10 years in the background. There's quite a few shops out there that are very popular now that I've helped along the way and given them advice on branding and marketing and corporate layouts and structures and all these different things that I learned when I was running LS1 Tech, and also from my corporate career. I've helped do startups in the oil industry of like, billion-dollar type companies. So I have a very good big picture of big companies and a small picture of small companies. I have a very good, I guess, a scale of that. And I was given all this advice, and people were like, "Wow, you really know this stuff. You should do this, full time. Like, maybe this could be like something you do." And I thought about that for a while, but it was hard because in my level of income from the oil and gas, it's really hard to walk away from that because I feel like I invested so many years of school and expense and experience to get to that level that it's really just hard to walk away from that. If I just had a really crappy job, it'd be really easy to walk away from. But when you're at that level, it's really hard to turn that away when you see all the time and money invested to get there. So as the oil downturn started to happen in the last 3 years, I started to realize that, the kiss of death of having those high-end jobs is there's fewer of them. And when there's a downturn, you're also one of the most expensive guys on the field that they're going to get rid of, because they're going to train people that cost half as much as you to try to do your job, but, not quite as well, but good enough to keep them going type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to realize, I'm in my 40s, that I don't like being in a position where my livelihood and my family's livelihood is always based on somebody else's decision.
Okay.
So that's where I started saying, well, I'm going to start reinventing myself and being more public instead of doing this behind the scenes. And 365 Driven was created to approach and have a more open dialogue with people to get them to come talk to me about their business, and then I can help them out. I can do personal coaching for them. I can be a business and startup mentor. If they're an operating business already, like I said, I've managed typical projects. To give you an idea, what I'm managing work is between $100 to $300 million. These are the type of projects and the complexity that I'm used to managing. So these companies that are, only doing $2 million revenue, they're really small compared to what I'm used to doing. So I'm not intimidated by the dollars. I see right through a lot of the nonsense. Mm-hmm. I can identify efficiencies and bottlenecks like nobody else. And I'm also pretty direct, so I'm not going to let people make excuses. I'm going to hold them accountable. And if you're going to work with me, I'm going to hold you accountable for the things that you should be doing, because I want you to succeed. Because if you don't succeed, I don't succeed. And sometimes you find that the clients that you work with aren't willing to put in that extra effort. They know that there's a problem, and you give them the reason and the solution to solve it, but they're not willing to do the work to do it. So those are the kind of clients I can't work with. I had to have people that want to improve and are willing to do what it takes to save their company or improve their company or take it to the next level. So I started posting on my automotive social media, Instagram, Facebook, more things about business and more things about entrepreneur, more things about success and motivation and things that I've had in mindset. Mindset's a big one. And I kind of got mixed reviews. I'd say about 80% of the people that were used to seeing me being just the car guy with all these cool cars, they kind of respected that because they were kind of always curious about what I did anyways. Mm-hmm. And they enjoyed the content. But there's always like this group of, I would say 20%ers, 80-20 rule, right? It kind of always goes back to that, uh-huh. Who want to keep you in that cardboard box of car guy, and then they don't want you to escape that designation. So they don't really support what you do, and sometimes they say negative things about it and that kind of thing. And it doesn't bother me, guys. I've had so many haters with LS1 Tech. I mean, come on, hundreds of thousands of people. You don't think we had trolls and haters? Like, we dealt with them on a daily basis. And it's funny that these people think that they can get to me, and they really can't. And it's interesting to watch. I'm a very good student of human behavior, and I just kind of learned to accept over the last few decades that it's just how it is, and you're never going to make everybody happy. But if you be authentic and be yourself, you're going to attract the right crowd. You're going to attract the right customers. So I just stay the course, and it seems to be working pretty well.
And this is I don't know if this is related, but maybe about 2 years ago, you had a Facebook group that you I think you set it up specifically mm-hmm. for small business owners, not necessarily automotive. I know a lot of it was automotive because, friends of like minds tend to hang out with each other, right? So,
yeah.
It's similar to the Do It for Living community. For those who are listening here, you may have maybe a member in there if you're a shop owner. And so you put this together for just general business, and a lot of really great conversations come out of that because it's really sharing, how to run a business, not necessarily like, what you had for dinner or what your family did last weekend, So did that kind of spur this 365 driven idea?
Yes, I'm a very good planner, as you know, a project management background, and I don't do anything by accident. So anything that you guys are currently watching me do, there was always a plan. It was on the plan. It was on a schedule, and you're just getting to see that now. So there's things coming up that I'm also working on. But that room you're talking about, digital boardroom, was a secret room on Facebook that you can't find unless you're invited, and it grew. It was kind of like a test bed. Let's say, like, I have this idea, I want to see how it's going to work. So I created it, and in the first day we had something like 200 people jumped in, and I thought it was going to be like 12. So it's like, okay, now I'm onto something. There's a group of people that obviously in my network that like to talk about business. So that validated the idea, and we kind of rolled with that, I think, for about 4 months. This was back in May, June, also back when I started being more vocal about things. Mm-hmm. And so less than a year, I guess we're about a year now. And that was a cool place. But here's the thing, is also made a promise that would remain a secret room that people could never find unless they're invited. So having talked to mentors in the same space as me of coaching and doing business consulting, they always think that you should have at least 2 tiers of Facebook groups as your forums for your potential clients.
Okay.
So eventually Digital Boardroom will be the paid group that anyone who's working with me direct will go into that group also, and they'll get special privileges and content and advice. And the other group is something that can be searched in public and found by anyone who's looking on Facebook. The group name's 365 Driven Entrepreneur and Success Mastermind. If you want to join, if you're listening, welcome to join. It's a closed group. We'll approve you. But that is kind of like an open bed for people to find, to actually have like a community, and we share a lot of content in there, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's a great place to be, and we get a lot of support from everybody. But there's always going to be, I think we're like almost 1,600 people right now, and we started that in December, so it's growing really fast. So, and it's all been organic. It's all been everybody in there inviting just friends of theirs that would enjoy that content. So I enjoy that fact of that, because everybody that invites their friends is already pre-qualifying the quality of people they're bringing in. They're not going to bring in people they don't like, or people that are annoying or spammy. So it's kind of like saves me some time having to approve, because if I see you refer people, then it's great, because I know that they're already good people.
Right.
And that's how it's grown. So I know that I can give very general information and help a lot of people in that race, and I love that. But the ones that want to work with me specifically, I gotta be able to have somewhere to put them, and they'll get special privileges for that. So that's kind of the 2-tier system.
Okay.
And most of the influencers and coaches out there and business consultants do have that same structure. So again, that was all part of a plan, just to kind of a test bed, validate, and then keep going.
Very cool. And that kind of leads us into the last thing, was your book, The Side Hustle Millionaire. And that just came out this week. And so how's that been working out for you? And the book itself is really, it's to kind of, all these projects you have on the side really is what led to this book, correct?
Correct. So I've been asked so many times over the past, honestly, we started, LS1 Tech 2001. So yeah, 17 years, people have always been asking me, how do you do that? What do you do? And a lot of times those people I work with in my other job, and they see me drive to work in a nice car, and they make comments like, "Oh, you must get paid too much, and we must be paying you too much." And I explained to them, like, no, not really. Like, this salary-wise, this income is actually my part-time job. Even though you guys take more of my hours, it actually makes less. And then their eyes would get big, and I would teach them. And a lot of people took that advice that I worked with, and went out and did great things, and they give me the credit for it. It's awesome. But I decided a few years ago, I was like, I need to just write this book, and it's been in my head for a while, and I just kept putting it off. I even had the outline kind of laid out and what I was going to do, and And I started, using the group that I had to get more feedback. Like, if you guys were going to start a business, like, what would you like to learn? And I took a lot of notes, and I said, okay, because I want to create a book that anyone who wants to start their own business, even especially if you're a busy professional or you have a full-time job already, that's who I'm going for, is people who have a full-time job, who are driven, who have maybe hit that glass ceiling in their careers, or they're looking at the next seat up that's a promotion, but it's a person that's the same age as them, that's not going to retire anytime soon. Or, these things that are just self-limiting, and you start to understand that I have a lot more potential in my life. I could be earning a lot more money than I am right now. What can I do? And I want to start a business. But when you start to look at that, it looks like a giant pile of things. It's so overwhelming when you look at starting a company, of all these things you got to learn, with corporate structures, taxing, branding, marketing, website development, leadership, and all these things to become overwhelming if you look at a pile. And to put it in perspective with the listener base here, it's like when you're doing a project car and it's a hollow shell, and you have a gigantic shelf and boxes of parts that all those parts have to go into that car to make it operate. It's kind of the same analogy as building a company. And if you look at the sheer volume of all those boxes, you're like, wow, that's I don't even know if I want to start this. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming, right?
And for somebody who's done it before, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's your first time putting that car together, it's very daunting. And that's
you
the same thing about business, right?
you got to open the box, read the instructions because you've never done it, and then you got to go search YouTube for a couple hours and find videos on who has done it.
Right.
And then you got to test it and make sure it fits. So yeah, exactly. So it takes a long time to learn that stuff. And that's the same thing with a business. So I wanted to create a book. It's less than 120 pages, to give you an idea. Like, most people can read this book in 3 or 4 hours if you really commit. And if you can't spend 3 or 4 hours to learn about that, then you weren't really serious anyways, because we try to make it as short as possible without being redundant, that you can actually learn about branding and marketing and corporate structures and these things that are really important to create that first business. Because I wanted to get you up to have a conversational comfort about having a discussion about all these aspects of starting a business. And that was the goal of the book. And I wanted to get people into the mindset, because to me, the side hustle community, and for those who don't know what that means, it means a side business. It's just a popular slang word of side business nowadays, side hustle. And people think too small. People think they set their goals really low, or they don't set any goals at all. And think about how they can make a couple $100 a month extra. And what can I do to make a couple $100? Like, my mindset is like, I want to make a couple thousand or 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000, dollars per month. Like, what can I do to do that in the same amount of time? So what I do is I teach you guys to take all of these ideas that you have for companies, evaluate them with actual numbers against each other to understand which ones are going to get you to the financial goals that you really want. If you wanted to make $10,000 extra a month as a side job, will your idea for selling this little handmade thing really get you there? And you got to be honest with yourself and be able to walk away from ideas, even if you love these ideas. If they don't get you to your goal ultimately, then they're a waste of time. And I see so many people that start these little small crafts things, or they're building these little hand-built things, or they're consuming a lot of time to do that, and they're making very, very little profit. And they're thinking, wow, I made $300 extra this month. That's awesome. And I'm thinking, man, you should have been making $30,000 a month. What are you thinking? It's like, why don't you use some of your skills or your knowledge to do things that can scale better, or maybe that you can train someone else to do for you. Then you can get paid from their hard work. So that's the kind of mindset I go into. I really go into the book. The first two chapters are really to cover mindset and getting past the excuses that people have. And I wanted to also be relatable, because everybody who started a company has had the same type of excuses. And I actually did a survey of over 100 entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. I think, Kevin, you may have been one of those as well that responded. But it's about what I ask questions like, what kept you from starting? What lessons did you learn? What would you do differently? What are the pros and cons? Are you happy with your business, or are you unhappy with your business? These are the kind of things that you always have questions going around in your mind when you're thinking about starting something. And I wanted to show that everybody has had those exact same thoughts. But then I also show that here's the answers to those questions. So that's kind of where it went to. And the book is really going to help a lot of people that just want to start companies. And, that's why I did that.
Very cool. And yeah, I can totally relate too. In that, like with my shop, I constantly get sucked into, like, oh, if I make this part, I can make extra money on the side. But when you think about it, then you got to like design the part, and you got to source to get it made, and then you got to package it and get it ready for shipping, and then you got to put it on the web page, and then you got people who want to buy it at wholesale, and all this stuff that just kind of, selling a part is not as easy as just making one of them and being done with it. I mean, there's a lot to it, and so it's a very hard to pick and choose what is going to actually make you decent money with the time that you have to invest in it. And so we get stuck in the small niche markets is tough.
Yeah. So to go back to one of your questions of how the book is doing, we launched the book last Tuesday, which was the 29th, I believe. And I really went hard and heavy. We did a launch week. Basically, I was doing live videos starting at 6 a.m. and promoting the book and getting my network to share the idea. And it was incredible how many people came out of the woodworks that didn't really count on that huge exposure level. And the book escalated so fast, it hit #1 bestseller on Amazon in only 9 hours. So,
your goal was to pass the Donald Trump book, right?
Yeah. It passed Donald Trump. It passed Tony Robbins. It passed Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It book. It passed Simon Sinek's Start With Why book. These are all huge business books that I love. I have a whole shelf full of these books, and I read every one of them. And to watch my little self-published book, 120 pages with Benjamin Franklin on the cover, like, basically walking past these things and climbing up this thing and making it up there, is like, wow, that's just crazy to think about. And I can't thank my community enough. I mean, I've done a lot of marketing and promotion of this book and to get people excited and ready for it. So when that day hit, everybody just showed up to bat, and I was just blown away by all the support and people sharing photos, and people are starting to get their books later in the week from Amazon, and I'm just getting flooded with all these cool photos you've probably seen, everybody
Yep.
posting pictures of it with their car, and so I have a lot of stuff I can share on Instagram, like check out these user photos. It's pretty cool, and it just makes me smile that something I produce is out there and people are actually going to get some benefit out of it, enjoy it. And it's incredible. I mean, you can set goals, and I set goals when I started writing that book in December, and I have a vision board. I don't know if you guys don't know what that is. It's a collage of photos of things and homes and cars and accomplishments that I want to achieve long term. And every day I fire up my computer, I see that as the background of my computer, and it kind of keeps me on track. And a lot of the decisions I make every single day, if it doesn't lead me towards that vision board, then I'm going to have to go to a different direction. So it's a good reminder every time you fire up the computer or whenever you shut the computer down, you always see that at the beginning and the end of the day. And right in the middle of that vision board says Amazon #1 bestseller as the logo. and I put it out there in the world. I mean, me putting things out into the world also keeps me accountable, because the more people that hear me say things and claim that I'm going to do it, I'm not going to let myself down, and I don't want to be the guy that just talks a lot and doesn't deliver. So me putting it out there held me accountable and made me do a lot of things to get to that point. And so it's really cool to see, here's the result, and it hits #1 bestseller, and it now has that logo that I had on my vision board for the last 6 months. So I believed in myself, and I set the plan in motion, and I identified those steps, and all I did was just execute the steps, and then the result happens.
Excellent. So I wanted to pause for a second, and then I want to go into some of the more business details of the things you've put together here. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, Tony, starting with LS1 Tech, you really grew this thing from, you said like a few, maybe 1,000 people, and it became like probably one of the largest automotive forums there is. Mm-hmm. Kind of give us some detail on how did were you able to grow that into that?
We grew that site organically. We didn't have social media. We didn't have Facebook back in 2001. So starting with our little racing group, I think we initially, the first day, we probably had like 100 people join in because they wanted to see what we're doing. They're curious. And then we'd all just hung out there. It was a very social atmosphere. And that was what social media 2.0. 1.0 was like chat rooms, and then 2.0 was like forums, and now 3.0 is like Facebook, Instagram. So we had to grow that organically, and we started doing that. Once we started getting a few paid sponsors, a few of them that recognized us that we were working with, they're like, yeah, we'll sign up, because we're charging really inexpensive. I think we charged like $75 a month or something back then just to have a banner and be a sponsor on the site. And once we had enough money to pay for the server bill and the software license, which was really cheap back then, I think it was like $100, $200 a month or something total, right? It's a really small, low traffic site. And we were just starting to do giveaways. Like, okay, we got these 10 sponsors. Like, let's do some giveaways to get people to sign up, because we could see from the server logs that we had about 50% of people visiting the site that weren't logging in. So we knew that 50% of the visitors did not have accounts. And we need to convert that. We need to get people to convert and like sign up and give us our email address, because building that audience is what brings value to be able to go pitch to potential advertisers to get back on your site. So it was like a circle that, that's never ending, right? Build more audience. Now you can command more revenue. And we knew that. So we were like, hey, let's also make this a beneficial thing for the current sponsors by, let's do a giveaway. So like every month we would do like a $200 gift certificate that had to be used on one of the sponsors, right? So they would participate with us. That way they would get a sale. We would give back to the community. The idea was like you had to register, then we'd do a random drawing. I just had this Excel spreadsheet that would pick a random number from 1 through the number of followers or the members that we had, and it would pick a thing. And we would announce that, and we'd have them come on and make sure, they would claim it, and then they'd go spend the money with one of the sponsors. So it was like this awesome, give type thing that always came back to us. And it got these people, all of a sudden we started to see only about 25% of the traffic was, not logged in anymore. And as the site grows, so does the traffic grows, because people are sharing the idea and, hey, come check out this site. You can learn about these cars and do these things and see these fast lists. And these guys are having racing events, so we grew it organically as a community. Back then, like I said, if we had social things like Facebook, it would have took a lot of that steam out of us, because that was our social, that was where we hung out with our friends online. And,
me too.
We didn't have Facebook. So forums are always going to be better for the technical content. They're always going to be better for archive purposes. Facebook, until somebody makes a forum that's like based on Facebook maybe and has a great archive potential and a great search feature, the forums will never be replaced, because they're just so much valuable information out there that's just there. And that's one thing. LS1 Tech, we were very strict on never losing data. We backed it up. We treated people like they were the customers, even if they weren't paying. I mean, we're offering a service, so the users and the sponsors were our customers, and we treated them like that. We always try to over deliver. Anytime we started to see the website lag in speed, we would upgrade the servers like immediately, like a couple steps up. We've always wanted to stay ahead of the performance and minimal downtime and archiving things, because we remember how that other site lost our data and how bad that felt. We never wanted to do that, so we always made sure things were backed up. The security was good and never got hacked into. And even to this day, there's posts that go all the way back to November 2001. The original posts and stuff are still on that website, man. That's crazy. It's 17 years later that all that stuff is still there.
Now I'll ask you this, and maybe since it's not relevant to you anymore, since you have exited LS1 Tech, the Photobucket debacle, where they have cut off all the like free photo file sharing, linking to or backlinking to sites and stuff. I mean, at least on the Evo forums, that completely destroyed all the tech. Like, I mean, I did it. I used Photobucket to share all my photos for the tech articles I wrote. Did that hurt forums, do you think?
It did, and it also had to do with a lot of how people set up their forums on the back end, the administrators. A lot of times when you're setting up a bulletin board, you can set file size limits for attachments. And a lot of these people were just being really cheap. Even though these sites were making money, they were setting the file size attachments too low, so you couldn't really upload a good photo. And we started to say, why do we want to use all these third-party hosted sites? Let's just open up the dimension and the file size and let people just attach things directly to their post. That way we host it. And I get why people were doing it. They're just being cheap. They didn't want to have all this data to host.
Mm-hmm.
But we were not like that. We're like, hey, we got to make it easier for people who don't know what Photobucket is, and they don't have to go create something and hyperlink it back. I mean, that's like for some dude in the garage that doesn't know all that stuff. He's not going to go invest all that time, but he may have some valuable information to share. So we wanted them just to be able to have a button that says upload. Oh, hey, look, I can attach a photo. So you'll find a lot of stuff on LS1 Tech is attached photos, but the Photobucket stuff did hurt. And, it was kind of a matter of time. I could see their point. They should have just put a watermark on every photo that they had out there that was hosted. You know what I mean? If you're hosting it, it should have just said photobucket.com on it. That way it would always refer people back. But I think they kind of grew too fast and didn't understand that marketing part. And I don't think they underestimated how people would be using those photos outside. So it was a great idea for them. I just think they didn't do a really good job of executing.
And managing the forum itself, it was you had a co-creator, and who else did you have on your team?
We had a part-time freelancer guy, Brian, who was like our server guy. After it got busy enough, we brought in a guy that actually had that career background, so it was kind of his side hustle. We'd pay him a monthly fee just to maintain the server, the software, make sure everything's going right. He was good at maintaining the security. And that was kind of that. And John and I were just kind of the business development. I think I attended every SEMA. I've been to SEMA, I guess, probably 17 times now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always important. I always felt that it was important to get out there and put, faces with names and build that community and build that relationship with all the vendors and a lot of the customers. So, a lot of people out there that are still in the industry, they've met me in person. They know who I am. And it showed that I was really caring about the industry, and even General Motors gave us media credentials, and we did a lot of unveils for them, and we had the back event of it, passes to go do their stuff at SEMA. So they treated us like the media, like a magazine basically, which was awesome. So it was as a GM fanatic, it was kind of an awesome way to get a background peek at a lot of things and see what was coming. And they would also use us to get some advice on marketing for any kind of products or models that they wanted to roll out. You guys think your users would enjoy something like this? And yeah, it looks cool, or I would change that. And you give them some feedback kind of as a media type. But it's been a good thing, man. And I have no regrets doing it.
What kind of time investment did it take you?
Early on, I'd say that, John and I were probably spending 3 or 4 hours per day, at least in the evenings, like just doing, I guess, promotion and trying to keep some content going. We were creating a lot of stuff and getting the community to grow and reporting our drag strip racing. I think I used to go drag racing twice a week back then. And luckily my job back then that I was working at, it was only like 10 minutes from the drag strip. So I would just trailer my car over there like twice a week and go bracket race it and test out new parts. And so I always had like data. I think I logged over 1,200 passes in that 198 formula that I had. So that was the first one I had. And so I got really consistent at driving 6-speed manual, and I was like one of the quickest and set a lot of records with a manual. But I got really consistent with a manual, and that was like over a period of probably 2 years of just drag racing it twice a week. I was winning all these bracket events with a manual against no other manuals. It was a lot of fun, and but once it started and the site started to take off, honestly, maybe an hour's worth of work a day, if that.
Okay.
It was more of a quarterly thing, because now it became, sending out invoices and making sure that we're collecting all the bills and that kind of things, and maintaining things and keeping everybody on track. And we had about 75 moderators who volunteered, and we allowed them to do self-promotion and build their own personal brand, which is important because they're working for free. So we wanted them to get some benefits from being staff on LS1 Tech. And we allowed them to partner up with our vendors who could mutually benefit from each other, because these guys are moderators, have nice cars, are really enthusiastic, and they're the sharing type people. They can go approach these vendors and go, hey, I'm a moderator in LS1 Tech, and I'd like to do a how-to article or an installation article on this product. Would you be willing to help us out? And then these vendors and them would work together, And so it was kind of a way if, and there was some guys that were just better at it than others, just like anything else who were, saw that as like, hey, I can get stuff for free and work out and trade my time for these things. And it's like they were using our side hustle to fund their hobby, which is awesome. And we never had a problem with that. So it was kind of like, if you were going to be in there, we're going to take care of you. And we had drag racing events. We started the LSX drag racing series that's kind of still going around today. A lot of that started with LS1 Tech. A lot of the rules and classes that we created back then have evolved into what's out there today for the LS events. So that was something that John and I paid for out of our own pockets. So each of those events cost about $10,000 to $15,000 in payouts and track rentals and all this thing. And we were making so much money at that time that we said, hey, let's get back to the community. Let's have some racing events. I think the most we did in 1 year was like 5 around the country to all the hot centers of where our racing guys are. And it also gave us opportunities to get out there and hang out with our friends that we met online and race together and talk some smack and do these things and see the real cars that we've only seen photos of. And I mean, it's just an awesome community that just really, really grew. But I think it had a lot to do with us always putting back into it and making sure that we made that community grow.
Awesome. What kind of revenue was the forum making? I mean, that's something that most people have no idea, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it was funny because back then we would sometimes get those questions. A lot of people were just curious. I hate to say nosy, but it kind of is. But people they would ask. They see all these cars we're making, and building and stuff like that, and kind of thinking, well, maybe they do have another job, so they're getting paid pretty well. And we did have good jobs. But to give you an idea, like we would get people, hey man, would you consider selling the website? And we're like, well, what's your offer? We're curious, partly because we're kind of curious what they think it's worth, and also maybe we didn't really know what it was worth, so we kind of were asking to see what their opinion was. And they would say like $100,000, and we're like, nah, no, whatever, because what they didn't realize is, in the last few years of LS1 Tech, we were making a profit of almost $400,000 a year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
As a side project, spending an hour a day-ish by the time it was up and going, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, we're each making, about $200,000 a year as a hobby.
Okay. And then what made you finally decide to exit?
Well, the F-body, as you know, met its demise in 2002, and GM was pretty adamant about not gonna create any more Camaros or Firebirds. We were not at the peak, of activity. There was still a lot of activity come to the website. As you know, I mean, it's been 10 years since now, and LS1s have not gone anywhere. People have, people are still doing LS swaps and every kinds of thing and building all these cars. F-bodies are starting to make a comeback again. People are starting to restore them, which is fun to hear. So we may have underestimated the LS1 platform, but we kind of felt, John and I, we both had really busy careers that were really doing well. We were both successful in that regard. And we started thinking about, here it is 2006 and a company approaches us and they want to buy the website. And we're like, man, the F-body's been dead for 4 years. How long will this last? How long will this sustain? Is this a really good time to get out of it, perhaps? And so we came up with a number that we thought, if they offer us this, then we'll consider that, and then we'll really see if they're really serious. And they blew that. The first offer was more than double what our number was.
That's gotta be so eye-opening to just understand that, like, you're already making, $400K between two of you every year, and then you're ready to exit and double what you thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, we were just thinking, we could maybe pay off our house or something, and then kind of have a get ahead of our careers and our retirement, and so we entertained it because, like I said, we had people ask that just they were so far out of the ballpark that we just kind of was like, hey, thanks a lot, and we're not interested. And we had a number, and we didn't know anything about internet brands who bought us out, and it was just the reality of when they made that first offer. I was like, we need to get a lawyer because we don't know anything about company valuation or acquisition. So what do you want to do? And we had a lawyer that was a friend of John's. He dealt with that kind of stuff. It was good. And he was like, counter. Their first offer is always low. That's the low offer. And we're like, really? So we thought of a new number and we countered, and they said, okay. So there was only one negotiation round, and we're like, we're not going to push it. It's like, we don't want them to be scared off. So Yeah, so we basically sold it for $2.3 million.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. And
Thank you, man.
and knowing this from our previous version of this podcast that we recorded, this happened to happen at a very inopportune time for the purchaser, correct?
Well, I don't know about the purchaser, but I know the economy because if you guys remember, we sold it in 2007, and in 2008 and 9 were like the huge depression that we had in the economic downturn. And yeah, we timed it just right. Nobody had an idea because that was the mortgage bust that just crashed our country. And here I am building a custom home during that period, and it was just, yeah, we couldn't have timed it any better. And honestly, the forums have never come back in that kind of evaluation because now Facebook was starting to appear around 2009, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about it that way, it's kind of like we timed it. You couldn't timed it better for the valuation. We just had a lot of things going right at that same time, and I think we built the business model right. And I think a lot of times we just did it because we knew that we're just doing the right thing, but we didn't realize how big it could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And you, I mean, when internet brands took it over, they took a different model to the advertising as well. And this was something that I don't like about Evolution M, which is also an internet brands forum, and they went to like a Google Ads model, or they're selling ads, not necessarily just for vendors, right? And that to me has kind of destroyed the content, not only making the page like cluttered and super slow with all the ads, but I mean, what's the point of paying to be a vendor if everybody else can just advertise over top of you?
Yeah, I agree with that. We actually had done the analytics when we still owned the website, and we gave up basically $100,000 a year in profit by not putting Google ad links on our website. So there was vendors. I mean, we saw forums that were half the forums out there had those Google ad links, and then we didn't, because we knew that we were going to deliver a lower quality product, and interruptions and annoying pop-up windows if we put those on there. So at the end of the day, it's like, is it really worth making an extra $100,000 to annoy all of our customers and our sponsors? It's like, no, we protect our customers and we protect the sponsors because they're advertising with us, not Google. It gave them no incentive to put an ad on our site if there was going to be a Google ad that we had no control over, that was just going to pop up some product or some company that we had nothing to do with. And they have a different business model. I mean, we only had that one pebble on the beach, right? So they have all these pebbles now. So their business model is to showcase a wide variety of platforms and this gigantic reach of viewers, and they're able to sell, I guess, packages. Like if you're a GM type advertiser, you could sell across Corvette Forum and LS1 Tech and whoever else they've bought in that sector, or performance car forum. So you get a lot of reach in that regard from being an advertiser with them now. But we had a different perspective because we only had our small perspective. But yeah, I agree. I don't enjoy forums that have that kind of thing. I know I can navigate around it and find the information I need, but the user experience is a lot less.
Awesome. Okay, so now that you're done, or you've been done with the forum for a while, and you're really moved on to 365 driven and the book, but what is your 1-year plan for your businesses right now?
Well, Deviate Motoring, I never really took it bigger because I knew the scalability would just not get me to goals that I had. It's very much if I were to work out Deviate Motoring, it would be building a full-time job is what it would be. Mm-hmm. And it's not really a business model that I can see that'll scale to where I need it to be. It's something I enjoy. I love doing that. I love seeing the customer cars when I'm putting wheels on it and how much improvement. It's almost like a transformation, which we all love those. But I was always honest with myself that if I'm going to make that kind of money, I could go do that 8 hours a day at a engineering job and make a lot more. And so I guess that's still on the fence. If I were to take Deviate Motoring and make it, and there was a reason I named it that way as well, is it's broad, because my idea was to do the wheel and accessories maybe as an installation center, but also have an exotic car, classic car type dealership, just something I've been interested in for a long time. Because I like to buy cars and I like to obviously enjoy those and flip those. Mm-hmm. And next to homes, cars are the next most expensive purchase. So I understand the business. I understand that thing very well. And that may be something I just do as something I enjoy. But the 365 driven, I eventually would like to, offer more programs and get more people involved, because I understand population. If you go out there and you talk to people, anyone who's still in the workforce, we find that 40% of people out there want to create a business or have this business. They want to do their own thing, but only 10% of people in the workforce do that. So there's this discrepancy of 30% of people out there who are working right now who want to do something, who aren't doing it. And I'm really targeting that 30% of those people that have ideas but are too scared to start.
Okay.
So I know there's a giant demographic, and I'm surprised that there's not more people that have gone into that niche. But I have the experience, and I've proven that. So I've kind of bought my way into that. So a lot of people can say they can do the things I've done, but I've already proven it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to benefit me, where I can offer these programs. And working on one-on-one with me can be expensive, but you're going to get results a lot better. But I'm trying to come out with some automated programs that you can pay a lot less and watch videos and learn things on your own pace, which may actually help out the people that are working full time, because they can learn at their own pace and do things as they need. But start with the book. And if you guys read the book and it resonates with you, contact me. I'll work with you. If you feel like we can, validate a program, then I'll be working on that as well. So it's something I can scale. It's a digital product. It can be worldwide. It can be translated into any language eventually. I mean, you just never know the potential of these kind of things. So it's that's where I want to go and do more public speaking. So about a year ago, I started taking more public speaking classes in order to prepare for this moment, in order to do these podcasts and live TV interviews. And there was a reason I did all these things, and it was to make myself a better person every day and prove it and challenge and take on something that you're scared to do, because public speaking is, that's the second ranked fear behind death. To put it in perspective, some people would rather die than public speak. And so it's a skill just like anything else. And if you have a fear about it, you have to take over that fear and put yourself in that uncomfortable position to improve. If you don't have pain or discomfort, you're not going to change. You're not going to improve. So these are things that I've been working on, and I've been documenting that entire process to try to motivate and inspire other people that, hey guys, I was just like you in this regard. And I sucked, and I was scared to talk, and I got nervous, and I got sweats, and now I can get up on the stage, and I've actually competed in public speaking contests, and I've actually won on a high level. 150 people in a room in these major contests, and I've actually won. So coming from only a year ago, from being scared to death to competing, that's just crazy. But it all has to do with, just like anything in life, with practice setting goals, and then identifying the steps and just doing the steps. That's all it is just discipline of doing those steps. And now the book and all these things are coming together. It's like you guys are starting to see the result of things that I started a year ago.
That's amazing. And this is through Toastmasters, right? That's what your public speaking is? Okay.
Yeah, Toastmasters, great group. If you guys are listening and you want to become, maybe you don't want to work on the stage, but maybe you want to do these podcasts with Kevin and be a better speaker. Maybe you want to be able to fire up your phone and do live videos to promote your business or your product. I mean, these are things that public speaking training is going to help you so much. And you may never stand on the stage to do that, but you're going to be able to speak better even in person and do these things. You're going to find all these nervous tics that you have, or what we call filler words. If you say a lot, or and but, and if you do that a lot, that means you need to have some public speaking training, because you will train yourself to never use those words ever again. And you're going to come across a lot more clear. You're going to get your message out there. And if you got a story to share, you're going to be more compelling, more engaging than just being very monotone and talking like this and saying like it's terrible. So you got to get rid of that. It's trained to do that. That's what I would recommend. Go look at toastmasters.org and just do a zip code search, and you're going to find there's a bunch of clubs probably nearby you, and they're all run individual clubs under this umbrella of Toastmasters as a nonprofit. And guys, it's only $45 for 6 months, and it's usually 1 week or one meeting per week, usually an hour and a half. And you go there, and it's a supportive group, and you take turns speaking in front of each other, and they give you evaluations, so you get to understand what you're doing wrong, what you can improve on, what you do really well. And that kind of feedback, and you get better every single week, and you get more confidence getting up in front and speaking like that. Mm-hmm. It's really scary at first. Believe me, it sucks. But after you do it, probably 3 months, you're starting to get a hang of it. Your fear starts to go away. You become more excited to do it than being fearful of it. It's really crazy that there's a mind shift in the middle there for most people that are really dedicated, it's about 6 months. You can actually shift being scared to being excited about it. And once you get on that side of it, it's just crazy. You look forward to doing these kind of speaking things.
What's amazing to me is, and just this is kind of a broad perspective of your whole venture here, is it really is. I mean, being friends with you on Facebook, I can see kind of these things that you're doing, and I never put all the pieces together to see the whole puzzle of what you were doing. And you know, like your Facebook groups, you know, this Toastmasters thing. I mean, you post about it, that you're going to an event and like, hey guys, look what I'm trying to do here. And, you know, all these side projects, and then all leading up to a book and having to get out and market it and, you know, put yourself in front of a lot of different, I guess, media. So we're a podcast, but I saw you were just on like one of the local television shows in Houston, right? One of the news down there.
Yeah, I'll be on the radio this Thursday here in Houston for it's a daily wealth management program on KPRC. It'll be, if you guys are listening, you can listen to this show. It'll probably be later after this, but the 12 to 1 Central on KPRC 950 AM in Houston. So I'll be on public radio being interviewed about the book, because that guy wants his listeners to create more revenue streams, which I wrote a book about.
Yeah, and it's amazing just seeing all these things you put together for this. I mean, it seems like it's just this opportunity in your life, but I'm guessing you've got stuff planned out for years still.
Yeah, I'd like to get on a TED stage next, and I've already started contacting some TED stage organizers, and it's just everything I've been doing is working towards that and redefining myself. And my other passion, other than cars, was always creating businesses and helping other people. You know, I've always been the teaching type personality, the coach type personality. I go work at a corporate job, and even if I'm not the leader, I'm still building the leadership around me. And, you know, sometimes I lead from the bottom, but it's fine because I bring everybody else around me up a few levels. So my supervisors always appreciate that as well. And I'm always trying to motivate people to do better. And that also keeps me motivated by me helping. That's the thing that most people don't realize, is when you go out there and you try to help people and make them better, it makes you better. You know, so if you're always got this mindset that you're only going to make yourself better and not worry about other people, I'm going to ask you to, like, you know, reframe that. You need to be teaching people what you learn, encouraging them to get better, because in the return, you're going to get better as a result.
Yeah, I agree. And that's just a lot of the Do It for Living community stuff that Reed started that we've been, you know, carrying the torch for. I put a lot of effort into helping people, you know, run their shops. And, you know, I mean, I have a motive for it. Like, we have the My Shop Assist software to manage shops, but it's, you know, like, I put in a lot of time with shops that don't use our software or won't use our software, just helping them, you know, figure out how to run their business more efficiently. And all these things that you can teach people, I apply to my business as well. So it's not like I'm just, you know, do as I say, not as I do. I've, you know, made my shop far more efficient than it ever was, all just by, you know, looking at what other people are doing, learning, and then applying it to my business, and then teaching other people what I've learned. So it's really cool to hear kind of you echo a lot of the stuff that, even though I don't deliberately put out and write a book about it, you know, I'm applying some of the same principles. So
yeah, maybe you might write a book, right?
No, not a chance.
So yeah, there's processes now. You can ghostwrite books, and you don't even have to do the writing yourself. You just can interview with a ghostwriter nowadays. It's usually 3 or 4 hours to get everything they need from you. You can tell them the book structure and what your goal is with the book, and these professional writers will write it for you for a fee. And that's how most of the popular books nowadays are written. So all these guys, Gary Vaynerchuk, all these big name authors, the only ones that you'll find that write their own books are the romance novelists and those kind of really creative books, the fiction side. Mm-hmm. But all the non-fiction business books that are written by big names are generally written by ghostwriters nowadays. Okay. And that's what most people don't understand. I wrote my own book because I do have a writing history. I've been published in magazines. I enjoy writing. It's just something I enjoy to do. But I get it. A lot of people have the information, but they don't enjoy writing.
Or the time, because it takes a lot of time, I'm sure.
Yeah, you don't have to do that nowadays. There's people out there that you can hire that have that whole process lined out. And, you know, so you could actually have a book in 30 days with the guy that I used he did the editorial and the cover design, but he does the whole turnkey suite with the ghostwriting and everything. And he can create a book in 30 days if you just, you know, hire that package. So don't ever let a book, if you got a story inside you, never allow like the fear of just having to write it and make it sound good and the editing and all that can be all taken care of. If you can talk on the phone and get your point across, they'll write it in your voice, in your character, in your personality. So when you're reading it, it'll be just like you wrote it yourself. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I still have no interest in writing a book, even with someone writing it for me. Okay, so I want to thank you for giving us your time. And how do we connect with you and your company?
You can visit my website at 365driven.com to learn a little bit about me and see my social media links. There's also a link to the group that I created is 365 Driven Entrepreneur and Success Mastermind. It's on Facebook. It's free. It's for entrepreneurs. We can collaborate and mentor and help each other internally. And you can find me on Instagram at 365 Driven. And on my business page is also facebook.com at //365 Driven. So I'm very good at branding across all platforms because I think you got to be consistent. And anytime someone wants to search, it's easier to find you and they understand the brand. So yeah, look forward to guys reaching out. That you could learn about the book on my website as well at 365driven.com.
Awesome. Tony, I really appreciate you taking this second time to share your story with us, and wish you good luck on the book and all your ventures.
Thanks. I enjoyed being on the show, and here's to you guys.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests. Thanks for listening, and good luck.